The Indonesian government is still implementing a ban on coal exports, which will last until the 31st of January 2022. The export ban has been spurred by a shortage in coal supply for power plants, as local coal mining companies have been blamed for not being able to fulfill the domestic supply needs. Based on data from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, in 2021, local coal companies have only sold 63.5 million tons of coal to this Indonesian domestic market, which is only 10% of their total production of 2021 of 611.2 million tons. Meanwhile, in accordance with the domestic market obligation, the government requires that coal companies must sell 25% of their total production for domestic needs. Many coal companies say they have been struggling to meet the government's domestic supply targets because the coal that they produce does not meet the strict requirements set by power plants owned by state electricity company PLN. And to talk more about Indonesia's coal exports ban, we'll discuss more with Yayan Satyaki, energy economist from Department of Economics of the University of Padjajaran. Hi, Pak Yayan.
Yes.
Hi, it's a pleasure.
Very much.
Pleasure to have you on the show. So put it into context for us, Pak Yayan. Indonesia is currently the world top exporter of thermal coal. Last year, 73% of Indonesian coal exports were received by Asia's economic powerhouse, such as China, Japan, and also South Korea, and also India. Yet this year, we cannot even secure our own domestic supply. So hence the ban on coal exports for the month of January to avoid the so-called outages at Indonesia's own generators. So what is wrong with this picture? What is the root cause of this problem, Pak Yayan?
Okay. Maybe I should answer your questions with a bit long answer. But before we move out to answer your questions, the first definition we should be concerned about is the characteristic of energy goods such as coal. If we follow the Undang-Undang Dasar 1945 articles that energy sector treat as a public good, which means that every natural resource that connects these goods on and distribute for the Indonesian people, nevertheless, this statement indicates that the government should provide the public with affordable prices and accessible across the countries from Sabang towards Merauke. If we look at this characteristic, the government has complete authority over coal market management. So theoretically, in a geopolitical context, some countries are significant producers of accessible resources such as coal. Essentially, we should have geopolitical power and manage our stockpiling management such as coal, especially for world's coal market management supply.
Right.
On the other hand, this market management should support with better upstream management stockpiling such as pricing and inter-industry relationship connecting with the global value chain.
Yeah.
The whole stakeholders should have at least a primary indicator dashboard such as electric power sector coal stock with maybe a monthly report for the last 5 years to support this management, or the last indicators whether they could disrupt or maybe they could restrict of export. Is it doable? So actually the United States has been with collaboration with U.S. Energy Information Administration, regularly publish this information about the transparency, stockpiling management, and therefore we can predict or forecast coal market management with data that transparency, and we can make the better decision for all stockholders. And the government also can force the coal producer or traders to believe that public owns coal and market obligation is obligatory to support public goods in Indonesia. Unfortunately, there is no these crucial information can be provided for the public. So maybe as for the short-term policy, maybe compensation for fiscal incentive, it should be introduced to attract this policy to become favorable for coal producers.
Okay, so are you saying that the policies in place right now are not favorable for the coal producers, hence they cannot supply or fulfill their requirements? I mean, if we talk about, let's first talk about the pricing. I mean, we know that the international market price for coal is way higher than the one set for under domestic market obligations of $70 per ton. And, you know, local producers are saying, I mean, it makes sense for them to sell to the international markets then. Then what to do with this? Should the government review the scheme, or what is the ideal scheme that should be implemented so that the local producers can supply for the domestic market?
Okay. If we discuss about the gap between the domestic price as noted by the PLN and also the international price in a global price at this moment, the first priority we should strongly concern that oil price is hike and always followed by the coal price hike accordingly. So if we're looking at about our APBN structure, our APBN has been heavily affected by the energy subsidies and economic recovery programs, as well as the increasing price of oils will hamper to the PLN financial performance. So I think at this moment it's really hard for the government to increase the prices. But there is some space, so the government could be as an initiative agenda maybe, such as a fiscal incentive. So if the government, they don't have any money to improve the price, so the government could offer some fiscal incentives, such as like the PPN or value-added tax or any other fiscal instruments to give something like the compensations to coal producer that fulfilling its obligatory commitment.
Are there any sanctions in place right now for these local coal producers if they're not able to fulfill the requirements under the domestic market obligations? And should there be one?
I don't think so.
Okay.
There is no sanctions at this moment. But if we're looking at to the UUD 1945, especially for the coal or natural resource, especially for the accessible natural resource, so the government has a complete rule or complete power to control this natural resource. But at this moment, there is no specific rule can control about the natural resource management in Indonesia.
Okay. So, and what about what the local local coal producers are saying, that they cannot meet the requirements set by PLN in terms of calorie requirements? Does that make sense to you? Like, how do we manage this?
Yeah, as I noted earlier, that actually we have bad, okay, let's say we have poor stockpiling or coal market management, especially in domestic market as well as the global market. So we don't have good information and good forecasting, but the government, all of the sudden, they give some, the very sudden information. So, it's supposed to be, there is a zero-sum game strategies, okay, how to solve this problem.
Okay.
So, as I told you earlier, maybe the government should revise and discuss more and how to fulfill this obligation, because we know that the PLN and also the government has the limited budget how to give or to achieve the price according to the international price. I think it's impossible to increase up to or more than the $70 for the coal price. So maybe fiscal incentive is one of the favorable policy, I think, for the government at this moment.
Okay. So, do you think the government is going to follow through on this policy of ban on the export ban for coal? Because now, let's say some countries like Japan, are urging for the government to lift the ban on export because they're saying that it is actually affecting their daily lives and also their economic activities. So what do you think the government should do? Should the government review it, or should they follow through until the end of this month?
Okay. So if we discuss about the export restrictions of coal in international trade, actually is permissible, even according to the WTO regulations. As you can see that these export restrictions hampered to the global coal trade because Indonesia has urgent requirement that these commodities, it should be fulfilled for the domestic market. But as I told you earlier, because we don't have any information or good planning and coal market management, so actually, ideally, we should give some notification to our trade partners, at least 6 or maybe 3 months earlier, that we will ban our coal commodities, or we should reduce due to these factors. And I think our trade partner, they will have some other partners to fulfill their demand. So I think it will be good for them, and also because we are in a global world, so I think it should be our partner, it's also our neighbor. It could be, something like the emergency information, so everybody will have the solutions. But at this moment, as you can see that even for the Japan, they still, worried about how to supply our electricity, especially due to the ban of coal export from Indonesia.
Okay, so you're saying the government should review it and take into account what other trading partners are currently experiencing right now, especially they're very dependent on our coal as well. But, for the future, what should the government do? What is your recommendations, in order for all of this not to happen again? I mean, we know that there is a heavy dependency on coal right now for electricity supplies in the country. And what to do with that? How do we shift from coal to other renewable sources, let's say?
Okay. So if we're looking at our energy planning, basically coal power plant is still dominate in our energy, energy supply. So it actually okay that there is an increasing the renewables from 5% maybe towards 15%, but there is still something like this far more ideal, share to, from the supply side. But there is some specific or crucial information about that energy. If the energy as a public good, we should consider about the price, how the people can get affordable price, and there is an accessible. And if you're looking at our natural resource supply, the gas, the LNG or maybe the gas sector, it will be more favorable. We should develop. So maybe in the next our administration, maybe after 2024. So we should improve and invest this energy environment in gas sector, because this is a paramount objective rather than the coal power plant. So because we have a resource abundant and we can manage the price actually. Okay.
So it's about supply and also making sure that the price is affordable to the people. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because, if we discuss about our demand quality of energy, we don't have any good demand quality of energy. Because the major driving of our demand is only the quantity of energy. So if we have cheapest price of energy, so the cheapest price is always deal or connecting to the fossil fuels. So if we discuss about the renewable energy, it will be maybe take 20 or 30 years to achieve or maybe to convert that the consumer will change from the fossil fuels to the renewables. So the gas is one of the crucial commodities that should be concerned to passing out of the coal power plant.
Okay, and that should be the focus for the next government, you're saying like that. Because, making that shift.
I think so, because
yeah?
it's too late now, yeah.
It's too late now, yeah? To make that transition, it's not always easy. Yayan, thank you so much for joining us on this show.